This is very thrilling. Shalom to you all. This is a day of celebration. It is a lovely, most pleasant summer evening here in Jerusalem. And I'm sure also a great morning at the grand opening of the exhibition of Isaiah and King Hezekiah's seal impressions at the Armstrong Auditorium in Edmond, Oklahoma. This is a celebration day for all our friends and especially for the lovers of Israel and the Bible. All of this would not have happened and not possible, first and foremost, without the inspiration of Mr. Gerald Fleury, the founder and the chairman of the Armstrong International Cultural Foundation, who is assisted by so many devoted, most talented, and hardworking people. Only to mention a few, his son, right hand, Mr. Stephen Fleury, the vice president of the Herbert W. Armstrong College, Mr. Brad McDonald, the curator of the exhibition, and Mr. Brent Nachtigall, the Jerusalemite representative of the foundation and college, who for 12 years participated in all our excavations at the City of David and the Ophel. To them and to all of you, as well as to the many others who made this day possible, I wish to express my deepest gratitude. Toda Rabba. You know, Jerusalem is only 5,000 years old. Based on archaeological remains, we know it was first established near the rich water source of the Gihon Spring, and since as early as 4,000 years ago, it was already functioning as a principal capital city, mentioned in the ancient Egyptian documents by its present-day name, Yerushalem. Yerushalayim, a city with massive fortifications which were found in the excavations. 3,000 years ago, King David chose this city to be the capital of his own newly established kingdom of Israel. And he chose Mount Moriah, right to the north of this city, as location for the glorious temple he planned for King Solomon's to build. 1,000 years later, only 2,000 years ago, King Herod rebuilt the temple and doubled the size of its compound to an area of 36 acres, which you can visit and see today, being the largest sacred compound of the entire classical world to have ever been built. One of the construction wonders of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, exactly 50 years ago, right after the unification of Jerusalem, in February 1986, Professor Benjamin Mazar, my grandfather, started archaeological excavations on behalf of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, right at the foot of the walls of that 2,000 years old Temple Mount compound. At the end of that year, Mr. Herbert W. Armstrong, the founder of the Ambassador International Cultural Foundation, became the most significant financial supporter of the excavations. He began sending over hundreds of Ambassador College students, thus enabling the excavations to be carried out for 10 continuous years as the largest excavations in Israel. But something else had happened of no less importance. A miraculous bond of friendship, love, and esteem was created right from the beginning between Mr. Armstrong and Professor Mazar. Such a strong bond that not only lasted until the end of their lives, but continued to inspire us all. Not only, as you can see, in today's event, wonderful event, but also for many years to come. The excavations which started back then at the foot of the walls of the Temple Mount was of about 10 meters deep until they have reached the fantastic well-preserved streets and shops from the Second Temple period. But, as it turned out, at the easternmost end of the excavations area, that is the area of the Ophel, a biblical term for an acropolis of a royal quarter, the royal building remains from as early as King Solomon's time had been even better preserved, only 1 or 2 meters under the present surface level. And I brought this picture to show you. 1-2 meters under surface layer, and you can see the extent of preservations, up to 4 meters height. Huge areas of well-preserved. In this area, directed by the Israel Nature and Gardens Authority and in cooperation with the Israel Antiquities Authority, we started in 2000 the renewed excavations headed by me on behalf of the Institute of Archaeology of the Hebrew University in Jerusalem and funded by Mr. Daniel Mintz and Meredith Berkman, dear friends from New York. This is where the 2 seal impressions of Isaiah and the King Hezekiah were found among dozens of other finds of the same period. These seal impressions, which the people in Oklahoma will see in the exhibition, and they are looking at, no, nobody's there, right? They are really listening to us. Present a peek in our ability to actually touch not only a personal item of one of the Judean or Israelite king, in this case, the seal impression stamped by King Hezekiah himself, but also maybe a personal item of one of the most famous biblical prophets. In this case, the seal impression stamped by the prophet Isaiah. And what are these seal impressions? In biblical times, when you wrote a document or a letter on a papyrus and you wanted to make sure no one but a person it was addressed to would read it, you rolled and tied it with a string and tied the ends of the string with a tiny piece of clay, 1 centimeter, that's it, diameter clay. Then you stamped the clay with your own seal, on which your name and your father's name were incised. That soft clay dried and broke only when the document was opened. This was not the case of our King Hezekiah's seal impression, which, as seen from the imprints on its backside, sealed a papyrus document that was never opened, as the seal impression was left unbroken. This was also the way to seal containers of all kinds, like fabric bags containing valuable goods. This was the case of our Isaiah's seal impression, which, as seen from the imprints on its back, sealed a linen bag. The broken seal impression may indicate that in this case the bag was indeed open. You may also ask yourselves, how come the prophet had to seal a linen bag? A papyrus means maybe is even better. This is when you have to imagine, and it was once suggested to me by Christopher Ains, who is also one of the assistants to the exhibition curator, that this bag may, for example, have held the bunch of dried figs used by the prophet Isaiah to cure King Hezekiah's life-threatening skin disease. Not just figs, dried figs. These figs had to be sealed. They were very special. Maybe. But there is a problem. While the identification of the seal impression of King Hezekiah is certain, you read it, it's very certain, beyond any shadow of doubt, as you can simply read by yourself, Hezekiah Achaz Melech Yehuda belongs to King Hezekiah, son of Achaz, king of Judea. There is a major problem with the identification of Isaiah. Not because it is broken and missing its upper part, where remnants of a grazing doe decoration can still be seen, but because whoever imprinted the seal on the soft clay, possibly the prophet Isaiah himself, slightly pushed its lower left side just after the imprint and thus left a fingerprint which damaged the suspected existing last letter Aleph. of the word Navi, because we have the Nun, Bet, Yud, and the Aleph is pushed, missing, damaged, if it was there. So, without this letter, Aleph at the end, it is most likely just Navi, the father's name of the person named Isaiah. But I'm asking you, King Hezekiah is considered as one of the greatest kings. And during his time, the kingdom of Judah had reached outstanding prosperity. Of the especially close relationship between King Hezekiah and his principal advisor, the prophet Isaiah, we know from the detailed inscriptions in the second book of Kings, the book of Isaiah, and the second book of Chronicles. The actions of these two persona are inseparable. But look, in our excavations at the Ophel, right to the south of the Temple Mount, we found the two seal impressions of Hezekiah and Isaiah in the same archaeological context, at about 2 meters apart from each other, together with dozens of other items of the same period, meaning of the 8th century BC. It's true that we have difficulty with the letter Aleph at the end of the word Navi, prophet. But really, what are the chances in the world that this Isaiah is just another person with a father's name Navi, prophet kind, which it's not a prophet, it's missing still, which includes all the letters of the word prophet except the last, probably damaged Aleph. This, my friends, is a question left for each and every one of you to decide, or to leave open until more seal impressions are found in future excavations that will hopefully provide us with a definite answer. Until then, I would like to thank you all of everything that we've got so far, and to end and conclude this with the prophet Isaiah's words. והלכו עמים רבים ואמרו לכו ונעלה אל הר אדוני אל בית אלוהי יעקב ויורנו מדרכיו ונלכה באורחותיו כי מציון תצא תורה ודבר אדוני מירושלים. And many peoples shall go and they shall say, come, let us go up to the Lord's mount, to the house of the God of Jacob, and let him teach us of his ways. For out of Zion shall the Torah come forth, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. Bless you all.